All right. Welcome everybody to the On God's Payroll global event or global party, as I like to call it, because this is a celebration of the fact that it's the divine design and your birthright to thrive at what you love and were born to do, financially and otherwise. So I invite you to allow yourself to receive exactly the insight, inspiration, tool, or next step that is perfect for you as you join us in this global conversation with 22 inspiring change agents who are demonstrations of thriving in their soul work and leadership. I invite you to listen in with a willingness to activate your deepest knowing of and ability to act from this truth, to bring the most thrilling expression of your soul work into form, regardless of whatever old fears, conditioning, or upper limits may have prevented you from being totally clear and able to move in the direction what brings you most alive before now. So I'm your host and the creator of this event, Lisa Berkovitz. And today I'm thrilled to present to you Jocelyn Starfeather. Welcome, Jocelyn.
Hi, Lisa. Hi, everybody out there. It's such a pleasure to be here with you, Lisa. Thank you for all that you're doing to create this amazing event, to bring us all together. Thank you. Thank you. It's so wonderful.
Thank you so much. And I'm just going to take a moment to share a bit about you for those who are meeting you for the first time or who may not yet know you well. Before I share your official bio, which I will do, I want to take a moment to share who you are to me. I was introduced to you and your sacred work last year, and you're actually the one who guided me to create this event. And for me, you are many things, but I want to name a few. Firstly, an extremely wise and balanced guide. As a wisdom keeper and an astrologer, I've known you to offer a balanced view whenever you provide guidance or counsel. So I really thank you for that. You also have a particularly soothing and warm way about you, which makes those around you relax and receive with greater ease. And I want to mention too that you are extremely balanced between your divine and human aspects of self. Like me, you come from the corporate world, large multinational corporations. That's in your experience, and you left that to follow your path. So you're both extremely cosmically connected and guided, but your feet are also really firmly planted on the ground. So I just really want to thank you and honor you for the path that you've taken and the support that you've been to me. And your official bio, I just want to give everybody a bit of a broader context. So Jocelyn Starfeather is a visibility and thought leadership coach for visionary entrepreneurs, spiritual alchemists. For visionary entrepreneurs, she's a spiritual alchemist, astrologer, and founder of Sacred Planet. She shares shamanic and ancient wisdom to guide courageous seekers in co-creating a revolutionary new world in alignment with Mother Earth and the vast intelligence of the cosmos. After a successful 15-year corporate career working in finance for major multinational companies, Jocelyn was thrust into a deep spiritual awakening. It was that awakening that turned her life upside down, and from which she emerged with a powerful understanding of how to use her intuition and healing abilities, aspects of herself that she'd never had access to before. She dove deeply into earth-based and shamanic practices, and she has studied alongside elders and wisdom keepers ever since. She has extensively studied ancient civilizations, especially cultures where the goddess held a strong presence, and she has spent profound and life-changing time in the ancient temples and pyramids of Egypt. Jocelyn blends alchemy, astrology, hermeticism, ancient and indigenous wisdom, and a magical shamanic perspective to coach and guide visionary entrepreneurs, revolutionaries, and change makers all around the world. So thank you for being here. What a powerful, powerful journey you've been on. So I know the theme of On God's Payroll is close to your heart as well. And I'm so excited to talk to you today about our topic, sacred economics in entrepreneurship, how to partner with the universe and experience more abundance and joy than ever before. So just would love to start with a little bit of how you define sacred economics and entrepreneurship. What do you mean by that and partnering with the universe?
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Lisa, for the beautiful introduction and for sharing about how we're connected. It's so beautiful to hear your reflections on that. And I also just so deeply honor your work and all the beauty that you're bringing into the world. So it's truly a pleasure to be here with you. And yes, I love your subject for this conference on God's payroll. It's so powerful. It's so in alignment with how I see our connection with the divine and bringing our soul purpose work through. Truly, we are on God's payroll. And I just love how beautifully you're expressing that here. So, sacred economics and entrepreneurship and partnering with the universe, or we could say partnering with God, partnering with the divine, right? Partnering with the creator, whichever words each listener prefers is perfect in this case. So what's really important to know as we step into entrepreneurship as someone who is following the call of our soul, as someone who wants to help make a huge positive difference in the world, is that when we say yes to that journey, when we say yes to entrepreneurship on those terms of the soul, right, and of what the creator, the universe, or God wants us to be bringing forward in this lifetime, right, stepping into connection with what we incarnated to do, what the gifts and the expertise and the modalities and the skills and the unique perspective that we were meant to bring forward in this lifetime, right? That is a truly sacred act. It is a truly sacred yes that we are saying. And it leads us into the most amazing adventure, as anyone who has stepped across that threshold surely knows, and everybody listening, I'm sure it has experienced that in some way. Now, the thing that we must remember is that when we say that kind of a yes, when we step into our soul purpose in that way and bring in our gifts to the world in that way, the universe, God, creator, wants us to have everything we need to accomplish that goal and that mission, right? The universe wants us to have all the resources, all the money, all of the interpersonal connections, colleagues, associates, allies, everything we need, health, an amazing place to live so we can feel comfortable and at peace while we're delivering all of these gifts to the world, everything that you can think of. And truly, we are meant to have those gifts, those resources, because when we have those resources, then we are able to bring our fullest gifts to the world. As an example of this, if we're in scarcity, if we do not have the financial abundance we really need flowing in, if we don't know if we can pay the rent or the mortgage this month, we can't be fully present to that purpose work. We can't help people at the very highest level yet, right? Because there's so much that we're worried about on the scarcity level. But when we do have the financial abundance flowing in, then we can be so much more fully present. We can give even more. I'll talk about this a little later. We can do more donation and free offerings, right? And this kind of thing. So I'll come back again to just saying that the universe, God, creator, wants us to have all those resources so that we can give our fullest, so that we can give our highest contribution in this lifetime. So when I talk about partnering with the universe or partnering with God, creator, what I'm saying is to really step into alignment and trust in this journey and opening our hearts and our minds to where we are guided by our heart and our soul, because that is our connection with God, right? Really trusting the journey, trusting what is sent our way, saying that sacred yes when we know it's the right time, because then we're coming into deeper and deeper alignment with our highest self and our highest contribution, and we will be sent more and more of those resources that we truly need so we can continue with that mission. Now, sacred economics is such an important part of this. Ultimately, on a really big picture level, we are here to be in sacred reciprocity with the earth, as all the animals are, as all the plants are. If we look at any wild being, out there, any plant, any animal, as an example, they are in reciprocal connection with the earth. They are taking what they need. They are taking food, water, shelter, the things they need, and then they are giving back to the earth in different ways. The birds are spreading the seeds, throughout the forest, as just one tiny example. The plants are, bringing their medicines forward to help the other plants and animals. We are no different. We are meant to be in this reciprocal exchange with all that is. Now we've distanced ourselves from nature. This has been going on for a few thousand years now. There's a whole other story I could go into about that I won't, but we've kind of forgotten that reciprocal connection. So by stepping into our purpose work, we are stepping back into that reciprocal connection, right? It's very reciprocal when we are making a commitment to do our highest work, to give our highest contribution to the world. We open the doors, we open the portals and the windows for the universe to send us what we need. Now, we can also practice this in our business, and this is specifically what I mean by sacred economics. And again, I'm going to go into this in more detail later, but just to give the summary version here at the beginning, what we really want for our business is that we have enough coming in financially, we feel abundant enough that we can serve people at all levels, okay? That we can have high ticket offerings where we bring in, larger amounts of money, but then we can also have free and donation-based offerings. So those who are not right now at a financial place where they can pay the high ticket offer, they can still receive so much from us. And I'll tell more about that later, but sacred economics, I feel, is so important to build into our businesses.
It's so beautiful. I love the way you describe that, because I have long talked about how when we're each true to our soul's blueprint, when we are true to our nature, what wants to flow through us, that's literally coded into our DNA, I see our economy becoming like the ecosystem of the planet.
Love that.
Every single animal, every creature, every living creature has a role. And the balance of the ecosystem is absolutely perfect. And that's my utopian, vision. We'll talk about the vision for where we're headed later as well, in a little more depth. But I just love what you said. I just wanted to say, I'm sort of got some champagne bubbles inside, because I'm like, yes, we're meant to be in that harmonious relationship, like nature. And I'm curious. I have floods of questions that I would love to dive into with you, but I'm so curious because many of those listening are on the journey, maybe even doing their soul work to a good degree of success, and somehow bump up against this upper limit or some way that the flow is not quite there, and the full yes to the divine design and the trust, the faith, the allowance of that organic relationship, the way it's meant to be, somehow isn't accessed. And I'm curious, I'm just going to ask, I would have asked you later, but I'm just going to ask you right now. What do you see as one or maybe more than one of the major ways we stop ourselves from really allowing that flow to happen, that natural organic flow to happen?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that we do is we doubt ourselves, right? It's doubt at some level. It's either doubting ourselves or it's doubting that infinite abundance that I was talking about, right? Doubting that we would be able to receive that, or that it's actually being sent to us, right? It's this doubt and fear that comes in. And so there are ways to heal this. And this is what's so important to know, right? You're not going to be stuck in that forever if that's where you are, anybody listening. And so many of my clients, that's what I'm helping them to do, is to get beyond these blocks. Now, what's really interesting and what I find sometimes works the best, because you may have been doing, and this is again for everybody listening who's in that position, you may have done 5, 10, 20 years of healing work around this, and you're still like, why is it not happening yet? So there are kind of two ways to address this. And one is we can do healing work, and that is really important. And we do need to heal, and we do need to understand where those woundings come from. Some of these wounds can be, for example, from either in our childhood in this lifetime or from previous lifetimes or previous generations in our family where we've been silenced, right? Maybe women in our family have been silenced for many generations. Maybe we have, connections to the witch burnings or the Crusades where so many people were silenced. Or maybe just as a child in fourth grade, you were silenced. So that act of being silenced somewhere along the way, or having violence against us for speaking up and really, sharing our truth and being the teacher or the leader at some point, and then having that shut down, is a deep wound that can really make us doubt now, even though we know we're here to do this now and we want to do it. It can bring in that doubt of like, is this really possible for me? Can I really overcome that old wound? So the healing work is important. We do need to understand what the dynamics are there, what the wounds are, and work with them. But then also, the other piece is we've got to take practical steps forward. And we've got to take the right steps. And this can be really hard to tell because there are a lot of business coaches out there that will all tell you different things, right? And it can get really confusing. And so this is one of my biggest messages to those who are wanting to make a huge difference in the world, and it just hasn't been happening for them yet, is that there are these key steps, and I can speak about this, in a minute, that are really time tested and proven, that will get you over those blocks, that it's like practical, one step at a time. Step one, do that one, then move on to step two, move on to step three. And meanwhile, you're clearing and releasing that old because you're seeing your confidence rise. You're seeing your clarity come in as you do these steps, and it shifts everything from an inner level. And then you see it being created on the outer, and now you don't have to doubt anymore. So to me, it's that combination of, yes, we do need to do the deep healing work, but also there are really specific practical steps we can take to get there and break through.
I love that. And I can attest to that, certainly in my journey in general, but even in this work with you and in creating this event. That was a message that you shared with me multiple times. Like, there are going to be turning points in this journey where you will become the next version of yourself. I'm paraphrasing, but and you were 100% right. With each new thing to be done, I had to call on a new level of myself and move through resistance. And so what you're speaking to is exactly right. So yes, we'll dive into that. I'd love to hear more on that. And I want to also give those tuning in here a chance to understand your journey a bit more. And I'd love to just ask the simplicity of, what do you see as the heart of your mission? Your soul came here. What is the heart of that change you're here to bring on behalf of us all?
Yeah, this is so interesting. I think I'm being asked to get really clear on this because somebody asked me the same question 2 days ago. And I thought, wow, because there are so many, for me, there are many different facets to it, right? And my business name, Sacred Planet, to me says it all in 2 words, but I do feel the need to elaborate a little more than that. So some of the facets for me, one of the big ones is really guiding people, and also being on my own journey of learning as we go and study the ancient civilizations and the indigenous cultures as well. The indigenous perspective is so, so important for us at this time as well. So studying these other perspectives, right? That's why I take people to Egypt, we in our modern world have gotten way off track. So this is one of my big missions, is reconnecting us with ancient and indigenous wisdom, and shamanic wisdom being a part of that, to remember who we really are. To remember how powerful we are, to remember this natural, ancient, reciprocal connection we are meant to have with all of life, with all of creation, and then bring that back into our lives in a very embodied way. So that's one piece. But another piece of my mission is guiding entrepreneurs I call them visionary entrepreneurs, because it's all of you listening. I'm sure it's those who really, truly, deep in our hearts, want to change the world for the better, and want to bring our fullest gifts forward in doing so. And so I am very, very called to, guide entrepreneurs in overcoming the blocks, the challenges. I want to help you break free from everything that's been holding you back in the past, so that you can really bring your highest contribution. And then these two connect, because in order to create our sustainable, healthy, joyful future on the earth, I believe, and I know you mentioned this earlier, Lisa, the more that we are each doing our soul purpose work, then the more in alignment our whole reality is going to be. Right. At some point, as more and more people are awakening, as more and more people are stepping into their soul purpose work, we're going to shift the balance. It's going to, everything's going to be able to shift into a more harmonic state. I truly believe that. So that's another piece. And then the third piece is being a mom to my girls and sharing these things with them, just being present for them with all that they're going through in their life. I feel that is one of my major, major missions and purposes in this lifetime. So those are kind of my big three as I understand them at this moment in time.
Beautiful. And I'm going to ask you one other related question to that. And I want to just give context too for those listening, because I want them to know you more deeply, but I also want this to be a kind of permission that as you are clear on your mission and you are clear on the heart of why you're here, and I'm going to ask you one other question related to that as well. I really want those listening to be thinking, what is the heart of why I'm here? Like, some of us are circling around it, close to it. And there is something that can happen, almost a little short circuit when we're close to it, but not quite landed on it. And you are you are very clear, you embody it. And maybe it's refining now in the way you might articulate it, but you're still embodying it and you're teaching it. That's very clear to me. So a related question is, and I invite you to brag fully, is what is your genius, your superpower? Like, what do you see as the way that you do what you do in a way that no one else can? What's your special sauce?
Oh, that's such a beautiful question, Lisa. Thank you for that question. Yeah. So I see people's highest potential. And this is something that I don't put that in my marketing. I don't usually even say that out loud, but every single client who comes to me, or student who comes to me to learn about Egypt, or, entrepreneurial client that comes to me, I see them, I see what their soul is here to do in this lifetime. It's kind of this magical thing that I really find very hard to put into words. But I can see that highest potential, right? So then I can guide them toward that. And when they get stuck, I can say, okay, we're going to find our way this way, instead of them staying at that obstacle. I can see what else is ahead and what else is possible. And then I can much more effectively guide them toward that. So yeah, that's one really big thing that I kind of hold in my heart always, and use always in my work.
I love it. And that I know I've known that to be true about you. So, and again, just, for those listening, like, reflect on that yourself. Like, what is your genius? What's your superpower? We all have one. That's the point. The whole divine design, like in nature, there's no overlap. There's no redundancy. There just isn't. So, what's the heart? The very, very, very heart. So thanks for sharing that. I'd also love to have a little context for your relationship to work and money, as it maybe was before this stage of your journey, where you really are, and we're all continuing to expand, obviously, but you really are doing the work you came to do, and you are thriving abundantly as a byproduct of that, which is, as I said, the divine design. So I'm curious, did it start like that? What was your earlier in life relationship to work and money like?
Yeah, well, I always I was taught, and I taught myself to work really, 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 really hard. So I did that in high school. I did that in college. I did that in getting my master's degree. I did that in my corporate jobs. I worked really, 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 really hard. And I was very close to burnout many times in corporate, and I really was striving very hard to move up that ladder. I worked for very masculine dominated companies. I worked for Mercedes-Benz. I worked for Cadbury, like these really big companies. And it was really something. I learned so much there. I know it toughened me up in a lot of ways. I know that it taught me a lot about finance and project management that I would not have had otherwise. But I was really pushing, my energy to its limits. And I'm not going to tell my whole awakening story here because we don't have time for all of it. But essentially, my awakening was when my first daughter was born. And I was looking into her beautiful face when she was like 3 or 4 days old. And I just had this realization come over me that, oh my gosh, all my life I've been doing what everybody else has told me I should do, especially as far as career, getting this degree, getting that degree, taking this job, taking that job, right? Moving up the ladder like everybody says you should do. And I realized that none of that, ladder climbing or all that corporate work had been in alignment with my soul. And in that moment, it was like my whole reality dropped out the bottom, and I knew I needed to change everything, but I didn't know how. So anyway, it took me a while to recover from that moment. I had some years of depression before I came back up out of that because I truly didn't know what to do with that information at the time. But as I moved out of that and really it was so interesting. I was kind of invited to step into what I call the magic, step into a place of all possibilities when I came out of that depression, and life events guided me to indigenous wisdom keepers and shamanic wisdom and shamanic journeying and these incredible things that like peeled back the veils of what I thought reality was, and then revealed to me that so much more is possible for us. And in that moment of looking down into my daughter's face, my main thoughts were, what kind of life am I creating? And what kind of life do I actually want to model for this little beautiful being? Right. And so I started living my life to come into alignment more and more with what I would want to model for her. Now, as far as money, working in corporate, I knew that if I worked really, really hard and made a good impression on people, I would have my income and I would have my 401k and my, health benefits and all of that. And so that was fairly straightforward. So in 2015, I started my business, Sacred Planet. In 2016, I quit my corporate job, and that was a really big leap. That was a really, I didn't know for sure what the income was going to be for me on the other side of that, but I knew I had to trust, and I knew I had to leap, and I had taken certain steps forward in my business to create a community and a basis of people that I knew could support my business and revenue. So that was a really big shift. When we stepped from somebody else handing us a paycheck every week to that paycheck is coming, solely from my own activities, right? That is really big. And that's why entrepreneurship is a deep healing journey, because then we have to come to a point of clearing out anything that would block us from receiving abundantly. And that's a lot of things that are in there, right? That are way deep in our subconscious mind or in our limiting belief systems or whatever it may be. So I had a lot of trips and falls along the way after quitting my corporate job. I had a lot of ups and downs in income over those first few years, and it was quite a learning experience. I had, retreats that I put deposits on and sent in the second payment even, and then that retreat never happened. And I even had to pay, somebody was going to co-lead with, I ended up losing so much money. Other experiences like that I think I had to go through. I think when we make mistakes, it's a learning experience we need to go through. And eventually what I found, and this is the most important piece here of what I've learned, is the more that I surrendered and the more that I let my heart decide what I was going to offer, how I was going to earn revenue, the more I could feel myself moving into this flow with universe, God, creator, right? And that when I started to get the felt sense of that, that really changed everything. And I stopped making the mistakes, and I was able to more and more consistently connect in and say, oh, okay, you know, I'm going to offer this course, or oh, okay, I'm going to offer this program for entrepreneurs, or whatever it might be. And I saw the revenue increase. Now, so let me just say this too. One of the biggest blocks that I had was that feeling of, I've got to do what everybody else wants, and I've got to work really, 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 really hard at it. And this is so important for all of us as entrepreneurs. Don't create things because you think it's what everybody else wants or needs. Now, we do have to consider, we got to consider our ideal clients or our customers out there and their needs and their wants. We do. But it's like that has to be taken into account with what you most deeply desire and are excited and delighted to offer. Those two have to come together. It can't just be what they want. It's got to be what your heart is leading you to. It's got to be tied to your soul. And then it will flow. Then it will flow. There's one more thing. Oh, and I will say, when I surrendered to the idea of offering donation-based courses, and I can talk more about this. This is, you know, might come up even more later in the conversation. That was a huge shift. And the amount of income and revenue that flowed in when I surrendered to that, which was very scary, instead of charging my, you know, set price that I would have normally charged for a course, leaving it open for donations. People could send me 50 cents if they wanted. What ended up happening was much more magical than that. And I can talk about it, but that was a big shift. So the more that we can surrender to doing things that are probably way outside of the box, way outside of our comfort zone, but we feel the truth of it, then the revenue can flow in. And so that was the biggest lesson that I've learned along the way. So I try to just always be in that flow and that surrender now. And it truly is a magical place to be.
That is so beautiful and so relevant, because regardless of where a person is, a leader in their soul work, could be early stages, but also, again, a lot of people who will be tuning in here are quite far along on their journey already, but at a new beginning. What I've witnessed and noticed, like, a lot of us are being asked to release anything that is not in truest, highest alignment at this stage. And there can be some holding on of what has been working that might even still be working reasonably well, but the energy is not there anymore, or it feels harder or less inspiring, or it's not working the way it used to. And it's like, what? It's not working like it used to. What's going on? So this is a really, really relevant point around surrender, regardless of where people are at. So I'm curious, as you just shared that sort of biggest lesson and insight, can you speak more to the practicalities? How did you surrender? How did you tune in more to your heart and make sure that you were in tune and in loyalty, in devotion to what that was? So I guess it's a kind of a two-parter. It's like, what's the access point? Do you have a practice, or is there a way that you make sure that when you started that process, and also now in an ongoing way, how do you make sure that you're staying connected to it as maybe part of your daily practice?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I believe that we absolutely must have a way of consistently accessing the divine. So that could be meditation, that could be yoga, that could be plant medicines, that could be shamanic journeying. That's one of the main ones for me. Is my meditation practice is more of a shamanic journeying practice most of the time. So I can say more about that in a minute, but it could be walks in nature, but we've got to have a way that we can access daily or almost every day, where we are dropping out of the thinking mind, because this is where the limitations are up here. That thinking mind, right? Those limiting beliefs, those old neural pathways. We got to form new neural pathways. We've got to allow ourselves to see beyond our blocks. And so however it works for each person, and this will be very individual for each person. I can tell you what I do, but it will be very individual for each person. You've got to get yourself into that connected state. And that in itself takes practice. However you choose to do it, that in and of itself takes practice. And it takes devotion and dedication, but it will bring you to places more magical than anything you can imagine, right? So we really want to be doing that, whatever that connecting with the divine looks like for you, very consistently. For me, one thing that I feel is critically important is connecting with the sun. Now, this is interesting because I learned this from the ancient and indigenous cultures. Pretty much every ancient and indigenous culture, they had, really important practices and ceremonies connected to the sun. So I'm in a place now, and I specifically wanted to find a place where I could be with the sunrise in the mornings. And so here I can see the sunrise to the east, and I am outside most days when the sun is rising, letting the light of that new, morning sun come into my eyes, come into my third eye, shine into my entire being. And I feel that is something we can do that makes a really big difference. That might seem like, well, I can't, mark off the exact, calibration of changes that created, but I know it's been massive, right? It's not measurable, but it's really big. And I will do my morning meditation or my morning shamanic journey out there with the sun. I also try to look at the sunset every day, at least for a minute or two. When the sun gets close to the horizon, it is safe to look at. If your eyes feel like it's safe to look at, you can trust. Don't look at the sun when it's way up high in the sky, but when it's very close to the horizon, the way that the light comes through the atmosphere makes it safe to look at. And so there are many, many ancient practices of gazing at the sun at either sunrise or sunset and letting that shift your entire inner worlds. So that's one thing I can say. I will also say that plant medicine work, which I don't do all the time, but when I have worked with plant medicines, that has created major shifts in my consciousness. I believe that is part of what gave me the inspiration to offer my courses donation-based the very first time. I had just come out of plant medicine ceremonies, and then that idea came through, and it really shifted things in my business. That was back in 2020. So those are some of my thoughts.
Fantastic. And I love that you emphasized your practices are not going to be necessarily anything like anybody else's. Everybody has to find their own way to stay connected. And I found that to be true as well. And so I guess the question mark for those listening really is, where are you with your practice? How consistent, how right for you is it? Are you practicing? I very often have clients come, sort of bumping up against a sticky something and are out of their practice, have been very much guided at different times in their journey, and then somehow with whatever's been going on got away from it, and it's always the first thing is getting back to that, like, how are you listening? When are you connecting? How are you making sure that channel is open?
Yeah, it's not easy. I know, with kids, and with running a business and everything going on in the world, it's not easy, and it is the most important thing we can possibly do.
Absolutely. So what is your relationship now to fear? When fear comes up, because we're all on the journey. We all have, programs coming up and coming through, and we pick up the collective energy, and if we're sensitive and we do this kind of work, so I'm curious, what happens? How do you handle it now if you have some kind of external thing or internal thing come up, and it's something fear-based or ego-based that is an old energy?
Yeah, this is an interesting question for me to answer because I have had a lot of experiences with fear in this lifetime. It's one of my major themes for this lifetime. And I don't know if it's something you've heard me talk about, Lisa, very much. Ever since I was a little kid, I've had panic attacks and anxiety attacks, and it's deeply seated in past life trauma. and trauma that happened early in my childhood, this lifetime. So this is an interesting question for me because it's kind of it's a funny thing that I have where like going live on YouTube is no problem for me. Presenting to thousands of people is no problem for me because it seems like nothing compared to the fears that I have moved through on a more personal level in my life. So I'll just put that out there. If that helps shift anybody's perspective on like whatever fears you might have around visibility or doing things in your business, like really it's small compared to some of the really big, fearful things that are going on in our world. So in case that helps, sometimes that it helps me like, wow, this is a privilege to get to go live on YouTube. We can lose our fear of it in that way and putting it into a bigger context. So that's one interesting perspective I have that has been helpful for me. But I do, an interesting thing for me is I sometimes still have those panic attacks when I travel. And so it's like my soul calls me to fly across the ocean to go to Egypt. And it's a really big thing for me to go. It's really big. It's massive. I have to do a lot of praying before I get on that plane. And I know it's my soul calling me there. And there's no question that I need to go. And it's funny because in those moments of fear, we start talking ourselves out of it. I'll be like, oh, I don't really have to go to Egypt this time. I could just tell him I'm not going. But then it's like, that's ridiculous. So really catch yourself in what are the fearful thoughts telling you? Are they telling you to not do something that is aligned with your soul? Right? Well, how are they? Because these parts of ourselves that are afraid, they don't want us to go out of the comfort zone. They don't want us to expand into that next level because it's terrifying to those parts. Right. So really listening to what is the self-talk, what is the inner talk, what are those voices saying, and then getting very clear on what here is true and what here is just a complete lie or an illusion. Right. Like for me, oh, you don't have to go to Egypt. Well, that is a lie that would be holding me back from stepping into my true power as a leader and a teacher in this lifetime. Right. So what are those voices telling you? And then getting really clear on what is truth and what is lie. And the fear voice will always be a lie. It will always be trying to convince you to not step out of your comfort zone. It will always be trying to convince you to not take that next up level step. So we got to be really, really aware. We got to really, get clear on what is true here. And then feel the fear and do it anyway, as I step onto that plane and I know it's going to carry me across the Atlantic Ocean, right? It's like, feel the fear and do it anyway. And it will be so worth it. Because then when we do that, we break through another layer of that fear. And on the other side of that is so much more magic than we ever imagined.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And we all have our version of it, things that, they're themes perhaps in this life that we're here to work out, but the courage to keep going, to take the action anyway and just to question in those moments. It's a huge lesson. It's been a huge lesson in my journey, especially recently. I've been discerning between something I know I'm called to do, separating the knowing that I'm meant to do it from anything to do with the outcome. Like, I just need to do it, whether the outcome works out or not. It's a similar idea that like, I know I'm meant to do it. So if there's fear, if there's question marks, if there's doubt, I just have to do it anyway. I just know it. So thank you for highlighting that, distinguishing the voice, which voice is speaking. And what does it feel like in the body? Because there's a distinct feeling in the body, those two, the knowing versus the whatever energy doesn't want to change.
Yeah, that's another question you can ask is, does this feel like expansion or does it feel like contraction? And it will always be one of those two. And the fear will always be the contraction. And then we know, don't follow that one.
So simple, right? These are the simple practices. I always say soul is simple. Like, it's the simple things, the simple touchstones that can keep us moving in that aligned direction. You were talking about donation-based offerings, and I was going to ask you, and maybe they're connected. I was going to ask you about as an experience or a story that you might share with us about how you know it actually works when you prioritize what the divine tells you, what the calling is, and how that translates to financial flow. How do you know it works that way in the divine design? That is a question, and maybe it's related to your donation based or some other story. I would love to hear one or both of
Yeah,
them.
I can share that story, definitely. One thing I will say before I tell this story is that I really recommend for anybody, if you're thinking about doing donation-based offerings, don't make that your first offering, okay? You've got to establish your business financially at a certain point where you feel comfortable with the revenue that's coming in, and then you have the freedom to offer donation-based. I would never recommend anyone starting a business like that, because then if it doesn't work out, you're not, you're not going to be any further ahead for it. The other thing is you've got to have a pretty good email list. And this was another thing that we could talk about, if you want, Lisa, because that's one of the main keys, I think, for entrepreneurs is growing our email list. It's so, so important, and growing it with a global audience, not just our local audience. You got to have an email list to offer donation based. So I'm just putting those things out there because I had already built my business up from 2015 to 2020 for about 5 years before I did this. And if I had tried this at the beginning, I don't think it would have worked. But at the moment that I did it, it was perfect. So what happened was, this was a course that I was planning for a couple months and had planned to launch in March 2020. Now we all know what happened in March 2020. And so, by this point in my business, I had high ticket offers and I had kind of medium level offers. And I think it's really important to have those in place. Okay. But then I was going to launch this course, and I think I was going to sell it for $129 or something like that. It was a 5-week course called Shamanic and Alchemical Medicine to Guide You in Catalyzing Times, which turned out to be perfect for that time that we were in. I was flying back from Costa Rica, actually, at that time, because I was in Costa Rica in February 2020 and had to come home a little sooner than planned because the whole COVID thing was getting started. And so on the flight home, that idea came through, because I realized as I was launching this course that I was hearing about people. This was at like I think it was February 29th, 2020. I was hearing about people having to close their businesses. I was hearing about people losing their jobs, all of this because of that global situation that was just getting started at that time. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, when I launch this course, I don't want anyone to be excluded from it who just lost their job or just had to close down their yoga business or whatever the case may be. And so the inspiration came through to offer it on a donation basis. So I did that. I put it out there, in alignment with sacred economics. I would normally charge you this price for this course, but instead you send me what you wish. You send me what feels right to you in your heart and soul. Did my whole usual course launch procedure. And what happened was the most magical thing. Now, one thing that was really magical was that people in areas of the world that have a difficult exchange rate to the US dollar, right, for their local currency, were able to join by sending me 50 cents if they wanted to, or $1 if they wanted to. So these people that would never have been anywhere near able to join at $129, the price I was going to charge, were able to come on in. But the other thing is that people who could give more did. And so that was just miraculous. I had some people send me $500, some people sent me $600 for the course. And what I found was that it all balanced out, and far more people joined than would have if I had made it at a set price. And this is one of the biggest things that I learned through donation based, is that we need freedom. People need freedom. And so when we have freedom to choose the price that we want to pay, whether we send 50 cents or we send $600 or whatever it may be, we feel really good about it, right? We feel like that was in full alignment with exactly what I wanted to pay in exchange for what I wanted to receive. And that is extremely powerful. So I ended up having something like 200 people join this course, which was far more than I'd ever had join any of my previous courses. And the revenue, it balanced out really nicely between the people who were able to pay more and the people who were only able to pay a little. And I realized I had stepped into this magical zone at the moment that I surrendered to that, because as I mentioned, it was really scary. I was like, well, I might only make $10 on this in total because, if 10 people join for $1 each, that's going to be it. But that is not at all what happened. And it was really amazing. So since then, whenever I have a course that I want to make widely available, and usually this is like somewhere between a 5 to an 8 week course. Over the years, I've launched it at a donation basis. And so this has been really an incredible experience, because some of these courses have had 300 or 400 people join. And it has ended up being really, really abundant revenue. So this is an example of where we're like really breaking out of the old model of doing things, surrendering to a new concept that's way outside of our current comfort zones, right? And then embracing that new way because it worked better. It worked better than a set price. And now I have started a whole new branch of my business that's called the Global School for Quantum Evolution, where I'm bringing in amazing teachers from all around the world, and we're offering all of their courses on a donation basis, right? So if you think of the Shift Network, they have all those amazing courses. I'm building up this arm of my business to offer those same caliber and high quality of courses, but all available at donation based. And I know, and I trust, and now I have, the experience of knowing this, that many, many, many people will give far more than the course is worth. Other people will only give 50 cents or 25 cents, and it's all good. And the teacher and everybody on my team is able to earn an amazing income donation based. Right. So it's like, this is the new way. This is how we build the new world together. And we've got to try new things. We've got to try things we haven't done before. And when we're in that flow, when we're really, really surrendered, true magic can happen. It's just amazing.
That is beautiful and inspiring. And, it's your willingness to listen to your divine guidance brought you there. And so you're creating a whole new branch of business out of it that creates potentials in the field for others who might do it that way as well. And of course, like we've been saying all along, take this as inspiration that your divine guidance, listener, is going to give you your innovative new way, perhaps, of creating something in your business. So it's not necessarily this might be an inspiration for someone to add some donation-based offerings through what they do, or it might just inspire. There's just some way that the divine wants to work through you that's innovative and evolving, just like the rest of us. So that is beautiful. So
Yeah. Yeah, and the innovations are so needed at this time. It's like there are so many ways we need to break out of the old systems and create a whole new model.
Exactly.
Right. Buckminster Fuller had this wonderful quote. He says, "You do not create." I'm trying to think of the exact words. It's something like, we do not create the new reality by fighting against it. We create an entirely new model, and that's what we're here to do now. So yes.
Amen. You said it. I love it. Okay. Well, and as we're kind of coming to the end of our time, I could keep talking to you for hours, but I do want to come to some of our closing questions. I mean, you've shared so many wisdom nuggets here already from your experience. I would say, what is the single most important thing we can do as entrepreneurs to keep our businesses growing in a way that's successful, of course, and fulfilling for us, and also abundant?
Yeah, so I'm going to give a really, really practical answer to this. We talked about the daily meditation practice. That's so important. That's critical. Okay, but here's the really practical piece, and there's kind of two parts to it. So one is, you've got to grow your email list. This is really important. You've got to have a really good, strong email list. The second one is, you've got to look outside of your local audience. And I work with so many entrepreneurs who are they have these amazing gifts. They're amazing healers or teachers or leaders in some way, and they're trying to work within just their local community. And there are so many more vast potentials available for us now at this point in time. With all of the technology, we can truly reach the world, right? So these two things combined are a revolution for your income, your confidence, the impact and the change you can have in the world is to really grow your email list. Don't depend on social media. The social media algorithms are not helping us out. Just grow your email list. And I have a lot more I could say about that, but I know we're running out of time. And find your global audience. And that's a lot of what the work that I do with my clients is, guiding people to really take those two practical steps way up to the next level. And it is truly a revolution for our businesses when we do.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. And of course, everyone's going to have access to where to find you and your work, but you do have a free gift that you're offering that's very perfect for our theme here. The energetics of money for spiritual entrepreneurs is what you've called it. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a jam-packed video workshop filled with a lot of really amazing wisdom of what I have learned over the years from both my own journey, my clients' journeys about money and our relationship with money, how to break through your ceiling with money, how to really come into that place of surrender to what I call the sacred instructions that the universe is sending us about here's what to do next for your highest contribution. Here's what to do after that, right? How to really be able to surrender into that so that we can fully receive all the abundance that is meant to come our way. So it's a very powerful and fun workshop. I hope everybody will enjoy, and that is my free gift.
Beautiful. Thank you. So everyone listening, you'll just be able to scroll down below this video and you'll see the link to take wonderful advantage of that richness. And two last questions. Where do you see us heading collectively as we each follow our sacred instructions and get into increasing right relationship between our calling and our abundance?
Yeah, well, so there are a lot of changes happening in the world. The changes in the world are going to continue because those old systems and structures that are not working have got to fall. They've got to collapse. And then that's where we come in because the healers, the light workers, the next level leaders, the visionaries, right? We are here to build the new world, to build the new structures, to build the new models, as we've been talking about here, to come up with the new innovations that are going to be our path forward in the future. So, this is where I think we all need to just fully embrace our genius, fully embrace what is coming through us uniquely because the world needs it. We each hold a very unique and special puzzle piece that is meant to fit into that big plan, right? Of all that we're building together for the future. So don't be shy, don't hold back any longer, bring it all. And if you're feeling stuck, I will say that's a sign that some shift is needed. There's like an obstacle. You got to find the way around or over or under or through, right? And you will find your way out of that stuck place, and you will find a way into brand new confidence and clarity as you overcome that obstacle. So really trust in the challenges as well as the easy flowing moments. It's all helping us to get there.
So wise. And that might have been your last word. I was going to say, any final words of wisdom that you want to share? Those were amazing words of wisdom. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we complete?
Yeah, one more thing I will say, Lisa, is to trust yourself. Really trust yourself. You are here on a divine mission. And every single one of you out there, right? You are here on a divine mission. Really trust yourself, believe in yourself. You are meant to have everything you need to give your highest contribution, to be in your fullest joy. So really believe that. Ask for your dreams and your meditations to show you the way. It is all coming toward you already. So really, really trust.
So beautiful. So, so beautiful. Jocelyn Starfeather, thank you so much for coming and sharing your wisdom, your experience, your wise words. I hope everyone who's listened has enjoyed our time together here, received the codes, the frequencies, because there's always many levels that we're receiving on, right? There's really magic in the vortex that we're co-creating here. So welcome to you if this was the first interview you've heard, or I hope you're enjoying as many of the interviews as you're called to listen to and on God's payroll, and may it serve your highest good. That's my wish for everyone participating. So thank you and much love. Mm.